Hey guys, this is going to be another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial, and this is, like I mentioned last time, we're going to look into importing new assets within the engine now. If you've seen the other video, that you'll notice that I talk a lot about Unity, and if you followed me along in the past, I usually do Unity tutorials, so I'll always sort of relate to how it's similar or it differs from Unity. Now, for this particular video, it's actually quite similar. And the way that Unreal's changed since I used the Unreal Development Kit, it's actually got a lot simpler to do a lot of things that you would do on a regular basis, like importing assets. So what I'm going to do first of all is show you my cardboard box I've got in 3ds Max. Now, this doesn't have to be done in 3ds Max, it can be done in any sort of 3D software, it could be done in Blender, whatever it may be. If I go to my material editor, all my box has is a UV map of my texture that I've got, and I've just applied it to my object, which is just literally a square. Now, once we've got that and we've applied as many textures as you want, you can bring in your normal maps. And as I said, this is going to be one example. This way is going to be showing you how to sort of import your asset, and then it's going to automatically bring your materials with you and create one in Unreal Engine. And then I'll have another tutorial which is about creating your own materials, which is a better way because then you have more control over what it does. But this is just the simple concept. So you've selected your box or whatever object you might have. In 3ds Max, we want to export selected if you've got it selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the folder that I want to save this in and just save this as cardboard_box. And it's going to be as type FBX. It needs to be FBX so we can bring the materials with it. And then what we can do is, if you're familiar with exporting as FBX, I don't know how it differs in other programs, we can just tick embed media on what we need to include. We don't have to include anything else really that important. We just need to make sure embed media is ticked. We can press OK, and then we shouldn't get any problems, and that'll create our FBX for us. Now when we want to go back into Unreal Engine, on our left hand side at the bottom corner we've got content, and we've got the start content if you brought it in and whatever scene you've started out on. I'm going to right click on the content folder and create a new folder and call it models. And then in there for now, what I'm going to do is right click models, and I'm going to create a folder inside there and call it cardboard box. But Unreal brings you up some nice warnings to just mention that you can't leave spaces and certain characters in. Now when I've got that cardboard box folder selected, what we'll do is click import, and then what we want to do is find where we've got our model saved. So it's there, cardboard box 1 FBX, and if we double click that, it'll bring in the FBX import options. We can auto generate a collision, which means if we have an object which isn't many polygons and we would just put some sort of box collision over it, we can say it will create a collision based on the mesh for us, and then you can set the transform if you need to. You might want to bring the collision already created for your object in the future. You can click this little drop down and you can look at some advanced settings, and you can combine meshes. If you've got multiple meshes in one and you want those combined into one particular object, untick it if you don't. Generate light mapping UVs, which is similar to Unity because that's what Unreal Engine does. It bakes its lighting out into a texture unless it's a true real-time light. We can set how we want it to be transformed, and we can import materials and import textures. Now this is like I was mentioning before, you can leave these two ticked if you want to create your material and texture manually, but seeing as though we clicked embed media, we want it to bring the material and the textures from 3ds Max, of which I've already created, just to make things a little bit simpler. So what I'll do is I'll click import. And one thing to mention for the future is, if whether you bring in this from 3ds Max or something else, you want to make sure that you enable export smoothing groups when you're about to do the FBX exporter. So for now that doesn't really matter for this model in particular, but for the sake of this, just for the future, make sure that you have smoothing groups enabled when you go to export. So anyway, now we've brought that, you can see the little preview of my cardboard box if I open it up, and you can see it when I double click it in the little viewer or editor that we've got in the Unreal Engine, and it's got the material, my UV map, and it's created us a material already. Now this is what I'll go into further down the line in the future, because what you do in this rather than in Unity, it was all in the inspector on the right hand side. You have nodes like the visual scripting, where this is similar if you're using the editor in 3ds Max, is that you attach the UV or the sample texture or the texture we've got here to the actual slot that we need for the particular material. It's because Unity really does this behind the scenes, so you don't see this. So if you had a normal map or something like that and you had it here, you could click on that normal map, add the texture sample here, and link that to the normal map slot, and we can change the settings down this side. But for the sake of this, it's already created our material. You want to make sure that if you do any edits, that you click apply and save to the actual material itself, and it'll save it out for you. Then we can close that down, and for the sake of this, we can bring in our box. If you press F, you are gonna zoom in on your object, and we can obviously grab the scale tool and maybe scale this up a little bit so we can see it there. And then if we press play, you'll notice that you can see it in my scene. So really all it was a simple thing of exporting your 3D model as FBX. Use embed media if you've got the option. Make sure that you export with smoothing groups. Possibly have a collision already done for your model. I'll go through that in the future, but all we need to do is click import. Import your FBX. You can tell it what settings you want. You can tell it to bring in the materials and the texture, if that's how you want to do it. Now other people work differently, and you might have folder called models, which will just have your base model, which is just a box here. Then you might have one called materials and one called textures, so you all have that in nice neat arrangement, but this was just a way to show you how to pull it all together into one nice scene. So hopefully that helped people just get to grips with just starting importing your own models into here and getting them into the scene. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.